Greetings. Welcome to the PharmaMar's conference call in relation to license agreement for lurbinectedin signed between PharmaMar and Jazz Pharmaceuticals. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode, and the question-and-answer session will follow the formal presentation. If anyone today should require operator assistance during the conference, please press star zero from your telephone keypad. Please note this conference is being recorded. At this time, I will now turn the conference over to your host, Jose Luis Moreno. Jose, you may now begin.
Okay, thank you, Rob, and good morning to everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to our PharmaMar conference call in relation to the recently signed license agreement for lurbinectedin in the U.S. with Jazz Pharmaceuticals. With me today are Mr. Pascal Besman, our U.S. COO, who will give you an overview of our program in small cell lung cancer with lurbinectedin and the regulatory process, and also Luis Mora, our Managing Director, who will give some details about the partnering process and will also speak about the strategy of PharmaMar going forward. And following our prepared remarks today, we'll open the line for questions. And very briefly, and before we start, just mention that today's conference call might include some forward-looking statements regarding future events or future financial and operating performance of the company. Such forward-looking statements are only predictions based on our current expectations, and actual results may vary from those projected. We disclaim any obligation to update any information provided herein, and we refer to our safe harbor statement on our corporate presentation, which is available in our website. That said, as you all know, on December 19th, PharmaMar and Jazz Pharmaceuticals announced an exclusive U.S. license agreement for lurbinectedin. And as indicated in our communication to the market back in December 19th, the main terms of these agreements stated that PharmaMar will receive an upfront payment of $200 million, up to $800 million in potential milestone payments. Out of these $800 million, $250 will be paid upon the achievement of accelerated or full regulatory approval of lurbinectedin by the FDA within certain timelines. And PharmaMar is also eligible to receive up to $550 million in potential commercial milestone payments. All these income that I just mentioned might further increase if other indications are approved with lurbinectedin. Also, under this agreement, PharmaMar retains production rights of Lurbi and will supply the product to Jazz Pharmaceuticals. And just to mention, for clarification, the upfront payment will be booked in 2020, this year, once we receive the clearance under the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act. And this summary being made, let me turn it over to Pascal Besman now.
Thank you, Jose Luis, and my greetings to everyone as well. I thought it would be helpful to give some historical context of how the partnering discussions ended up happening, because there were quite a few little twists of fate along the way. So just going back a few years, when we started the Atlantis randomized trial, based on our discussions with FDA at that point, it was agreed that we would expand our monotherapy cohort up to about 100 patients, and that would support the randomized trial with the monotherapy activity. As time went forward, we get to ASCO 2018, where we had the first interim look of the first 60-odd patients of that monotherapy cohort, which showed very striking activity that frankly surprised us as well. And as we noodled through that, it was decided later that year to have an end-of-phase 2 meeting with FDA to discuss the possibility of an accelerated approval pathway for the monotherapy. And that meeting took place with FDA in December of 2018, where essentially the FDA agreed that it was possible that the data, when finalized, could support an accelerated approval filing, and they gave us a few things that they wanted us to come back with. As we led into that meeting, we had some preliminary partnering discussions with a number of entities from various countries, various flavors. And as you can imagine, all of those put their discussions and thoughts on hold, awaiting those FDA minutes to see where we stood. As it happens, the FDA minutes clearly said that there was a possibility and presaged a future FDA meeting. And so those partnering discussions remained on ice. As everyone said, we'll wait to see those meetings because you would be chopping a year off the timelines if it's a yes, so it changes the dynamics and the financials very dramatically. So we then ended up having this pre-NDA meeting with FDA in August of last year. And at that meeting, it was decided that we would file off the full 105 patients that were presented at ASCO last year. And at that point, we were able to really turn the light switch on for all those partnering discussions and try to drive this to a short-term fruition, given the accelerated approval had taken a year off the timelines and a number of months off the review process as well. So that I thought would be helpful just to give you the context of how we ended up here. And we did run a thorough process, and I'll hand this over to Luis, who can describe that process and how we came to the conclusion that we're very happy with of partnering with Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Luis?
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. Hello, good morning. Well, the process of achieve this success deal was very interesting. You remember the company PharmaMar's announced last year we think about the several options. So we move along to the American market, or we move to the co-promotion model from the beginning. But at the end of the day, we decide to move to the American market through the full license. In this process, we received several options. Fortunately, we have the capacity to select for us what is the best option. And the best option was Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Why Jazz Pharmaceuticals? Well, part of the economics is already disclosed in our press release. Jazz Pharmaceuticals demonstrate a very commitment with our drug. As far as you know, small cell lung cancer is a high medical needs, and we think that Jazz is the right company to approach to the patients, to the doctors, and to maximize the value of the product in this market. Jazz Pharmaceuticals demonstrate the high capabilities and high skills in the management team. And in the several meetings we had with the company, Jazz Pharmaceuticals, at least with the other companies, but Jazz Pharmaceuticals demonstrate us the capability to build a Louis franchise in USA, and we ensure for both parties we work together in order to maximize the product in this market. The process will be a typical process in the license product. You can see in the press release the structure of the license is not different with the other license in the market, but put in for lurbinectedin and for PharmaMar's is important because bring to all the investors of the company the real value of the product for this market. And now for PharmaMar's, this deal and this approach to the American market will impact in our P&L in the several years, but bring the opportunity to accelerate for PharmaMar's many programs, many assets we have in our pipeline, the preclinical test, in order to accelerate this process and to build a very robust, very interesting pipeline. In fact, we expected in not more than 2 years, 2 or 3 new candidates will start the new clinical trials. And now we're in discussion to the opportunity to incorporate outside assets in our business, in our pipeline. Then, in summary, we consider this very important deal with Jazz, and Jazz is a right partner for the fault. Thank you.
Okay. I think this has been our introduction explanation to what we announced on the 19th of December, and we'll open now the time for questions.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask a question today, you may press star 1 on your telephone keypad, and a confirmation tone will indicate your line is in the question queue. You may press star 2 if you would like to remove your question from the queue. For participants that are using speaker equipment, it may be necessary to pick up your handset before pressing the star keys. One moment, please, while we poll for questions. And once again, that's star 1. Thank you. Our first question is from the line of Jason Gerbery with Bank of America. Please proceed with your questions.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for taking my questions. I guess just a couple for me. Can you talk a little bit about the PDUFA file, or I guess the PDUFA date and the filing, and are you anticipating you'd get an indication for relapsed small cell lung inclusive of both second, third line, or do you think that it would be specified to patients with 2 prior lines of therapy based on the supportive study? And can you just clarify, I know that the $250 million regulatory milestone, it says payable on accelerated or full, so if you get accelerated, is the payment effective, or do you need full approval? If you can clarify on that front. And then I'm less familiar with the story, so if you can clarify the duration of patent term extension you're thinking you'll get off the composition, which to my understanding expires in 2024.
Well, the regulatory process is ongoing. We apply for accelerated approval, not only accelerated approval, we apply for priority review. As far as you know, is cancer and is orphan status. Then, accordingly, the rules from the FDA after the submission is about 8 months, a maximum PDUFA date. Obviously, they can extend, but in the last 3 years, if you analyze the last year, 2 years, they were priority review granted. They achieved the FDA opinion before the PDUFA date. Then, accordingly, the rules with the FDA and the data we submit the dossier, theoretically, the PDUFA date will be in August this year, okay? But could be earlier or after, okay? Regarding the label we submit for relapse is after first line, that included all resistant and sensitive patients, even localized disease or extensive disease, doesn't matter, okay? This is what we will include in the discussion with label, but as far as you know, all of you, at the end of the day, will be a FDA review issue on decision like the other drugs. Regarding the milestones, we disclose in the press release up to $250 million if we achieve some type of approval. We don't disclose more details of this milestone.
Okay.
Regarding the IP, the IP, as far as you know, is orphan. Then orphan drug from the approval, if we achieve the approval in 2020 this year, you has granted 7 years of data protection. Apart of that, the composition of matter will expire in 2024, but we have the possibility to expand the 5 years more until 2029.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from the line of Christian Glennie with Stifel. Please proceed with your questions. Christian, your line is open for questions.
Christian, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we do now.
Okay, sorry.
Christian? Yeah, we didn't hear you first, yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Congratulations on the deal. Just just looking ahead to what's in play here in terms of for the rest of this year, particularly on the timing of the Atlantis data and the potential implications of that vis-a-vis an FDA review. Firstly, just on the Atlantis data on the timing, what's the expectation of data there, and how you and/or you think the FDA will be viewing the potential read across from the outcome of that study versus the ongoing review.
Pascal?
Yeah, thanks, Christian. So the Atlantis at this point we would say is likely to bring us data in mid-year. We don't have any more specificity at this point, which, given what Luis just said previously, probably brings the data during review or around review. It's certainly possible during review. You have to bear in mind that this is not exactly a stealth trial. FDA is aware of the trial, was aware of the trial when we met them in the pre-NDA meeting and the end of phase 2 meeting. And essentially, the decision to encourage and let us file for accelerated approval decouples the two trials, by which FDA is basically saying that the accelerated approval from the monotherapy stands on its own. Now, clearly, FDA is always going to want to be comfortable with all subsequent data sets. However, if they envisage that they were going to have to do a thorough review of Atlantis, it doesn't mesh with the timelines of accelerated approval. And so our understanding, and that which is in the minutes, is that by decoupling the trials, they will certainly look at the data, make sure that the adverse event profiles do not present anything new and unexpected, but to a large extent, they will not do a full review of that data, regardless of exactly when it comes. Now, if the Atlantis trial can serve to convert the accelerated approval to full approval, that obviously would be a review issue and will come at a later point. And if it cannot, the presumption is that we would have to do a confirmatory trial, which would be lurbinectedin versus topotecan head-to-head.
Okay, thank you. And then on the, if you talk a little bit about the opportunity in the second line, given the sort of slightly changing dynamic in first line, obviously some new IO combos there, combinations, Tecentriq, obviously Imfinzi coming, albeit that Keytruda looks like it's probably fallen over this week in the first line. What's the sort of pull through into the second line? Is there potential recycling between IO options in first line before moving on to second line? How do you characterize that second line opportunity?
Well, now our submission to the FDA, as I explained before, is for a lot of second line after first line. You say the first line now is approved atezolizumab plus chemo, is approved durvalumab plus chemo, and now probably pembro is coming. In parallel, we started some IIS trials combination with some IO. Is not any plan today to move forward. We are focused now for the approval in second line, the regulatory process, and these three small trials, the combination with IO is the proof of concept of the mechanism of action are not overlapping toxicity and they work. That's it for today.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question is from the line of Esther Rajavelu with Oppenheimer. Please proceed with your questions.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my questions. Can you walk us through the manufacturing process here and, the potential for commercial supply and how you think about costs associated with manufacturing?
Yeah, and in the agreement, and was disclosed in the press release, we will sell the active ingredient to Johnson Pharmaceutical, okay? And then the Johnson Pharmaceutical will commercialize and put the vialization process. The production process for lurbinectedin active ingredient is a very efficient process. We have sufficient raw materials, suppliers, etc., in order to be sure there's not any issue about the respect to the commercial supply. The cost for the drug is not disclosed, obviously, but is high, costly, efficient.
So as I understand it, and forgive me if I'm misunderstanding this, but there is a process for actual raw material collection that involves natural resources. So how long? Can you help us understand that and help us understand how long from that process to a finished product?
It's a synthetic process. It's a synthetic process. It's manufactured, not natural process. No. Fortunately.
So in terms of commercial...
Sorry, in order to expand more my explanation, we start with the fermentation process, and then we have 1/8 synthesis steps to arrive for the active ingredient. Then this is yet well known, the process. In fact, we built many batches in the last 5 years, and is a GMP, FDA approved. The starting materials was approved by the FDA several years ago. Then but these are all synthetic process. Okay.
Gotcha. And the U.S. market and the EU market will be supplied from the same production facilities, manufacturing facilities?
Yeah. You take in account is the milligrams. Okay, one cycle is 3.2 milligrams by a square meter. Okay, then we don't need tons. Then we have for both suppliers sufficient capacity for only use about 50% of the capacity. Okay, when we achieve the peak sales worldwide.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Our next question is from the line of Samir Devani with RX Securities. Please proceed with your questions.
Hello, everyone. Let me add my congrats to the deal. Some great terms on that. I just wanted to ask about potentially the commercial relevance of Atlantis. Assuming that you get approval, accelerated approval as a monotherapy, what will a positive readout on Atlantis mean commercially for the sales of the drug in your view? Thanks very much.
Particularly in USA, as far as you know, is a single agent. But it's true, in Europe, we will meet with the authorities, the Atlantis is finished, in order because we have two possibilities, or single agent or combination. The commercial point of view, and for the key opinion leaders in Europe and for the patients, is much better the single agent for many things. For secondary effects, single agent. Accordingly, the preliminary phase 1, phase 2, the combination is much better the single agent. The second one is easier for the patients, the administration, because it's not a combination, always is easier. And the commercial point of view, obviously, is much better because it's cheaper for the market access and easier to have a single agent than a combination. In any case, if at the end of the day in Europe, the final approval by the EMA will be the combination, okay, with the commercial point of view, in the combination is 2 milligrams by a square meter, instead 3.2 milligrams by a square meter. But what is included in the Atlantis is when the combination stops for any reason because the patient can receive more doxo, is included, they can continue single agent at the full dose 3.2 milligrams. Okay, then today is too early to see what will be the real impact. But in principle, we will see in Europe what will be the potential approval. In the rest of the world, not only in the USA, but we have the partners in Australia, we have the partners probably in the other part of the world, they try to approve in the single agent.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Our next question is from the line of Bill Petrelli with Amarin Capital. Please proceed with your question.
Hey, thanks very much. Congrats. Just had a quick question on the KOLs. Where do you guys see Lurbi standing in terms of the mind share of where the KOLs in the U.S. are currently thinking?
Pascal?
Thanks for the question, Bill. So we have spent the last 2 to 2.5 years actively and aggressively engaging with the American thoracic oncologists, specifically those who see and treat quite a lot of small cell lung cancer, such that we have really a very strong network now of those who've helped us with how we position, how we treat, and things such as that. To give you a sense of the level of the reach and the network that we developed, shortly after ASCO, we engaged with that network to ask them some basic questions about a U.S. expanded access program. And out of sending 110 odd questionnaires, we received back more or less 60 of them, which is really an unheard of response and is really more testimony to the drug than the wonderful way that I worded the survey. And from that, we got tremendous feedback, and that expanded access program that we have used, those feedback from these KOLs, is going to manifest itself, we expect, in the very near future with a U.S. expanded access program that will allow the treating physicians all over the country, as it will be a national IRB, to get their hands on the drug and use it on their patients who have run out of options. So we feel very good about the level of penetration of share of mind and voice of lurbinectedin with the U.S. KOLs.
Thanks. Congrats.
The next question is from the line of Jason Gerberry with Bank of America.
Oh, hey, thanks for taking my follow-up question. Just wanted to confirm, so will you guys incur all of the remaining R&D spend? I assume Jazz obviously will incur the remaining selling and marketing commitments, but just wanted to confirm that you guys will incur all the remaining R&D costs. And then just a question about the small cell lung market. Just trying to get a sense of the proportion of new cases that you think right now are currently progressing into second and third line, respectively, and any color you can provide on where you think current duration of therapy is. Thus, if a new therapy comes along, like you guys, what we could sort of model in terms of duration of therapy if we are to assume an improvement there.
Oh, regarding the R&D for the lurbinectedin in the small cell lung cancer remain very, very small amount. As far as you know, the basket trial is already finished, and the Atlantis trials with the readout data is in the middle of the year. Then the 90% of the cost of the Atlantis trial is already borne. Okay? Then I don't know if the FDA will be some requirement, but in any case, it's not a big amount. Then this is a PharmaMar's commitment, independently of the license or not. We are committed with lurbinectedin, which is included in our plans. The second part?
Pascal, you might take the second part of the question.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at our website and look at the slide deck, there's a slide in there we put to help with this question, but I'll go through it now as well. Small cell numbers are a little bit squishy insofar as they are not done separately from lung cancer, and so you end up getting a percentage of lung. Most people say in the U.S. and in Western Europe it's somewhere in the 13-16% of total. So you end up with about 35,000 new frontline patients in small cell, of which the 90% or so get treated. Obviously, when you're and those who are extensive stage are all getting treated platinum etoposide, which has very high response rate. So the only ones you wouldn't treat are those who refuse treatment or are just dire prognosis. The statistics that we use for second line are around 60%, and those come from various sources. You can look at how many were treated in the Atezo frontline trial, how many were treated in the Caspian trial. You can look at other statistics. And that number is likely to be going up as a result of IO in frontline, because IO in frontline, in theory, is giving patients in the maintenance setting a little bit of a holiday from the chemo and delivering hopefully into second line a healthier patient that can tolerate more therapy. And then in terms of duration of therapy that you asked, so in front line, both Atezo and Caspian had 12 months OS, and the PFS in both cases was, I don't remember exactly, but probably 7-ish months, 7 or 8 months. In all likelihood, you wouldn't dose through progression in those settings. In the second line, our duration of therapy was 5.3 months. We would expect in that setting, given the dearth of viable options, that some doctors would dose through progression because, of course, you can progress and have your CR become a PR, but the drug may still be doing something better than nothing with the next best alternative. Thanks for the question.
Thanks.
The next question is a follow-up from the line of Christian Glennie with Stifel. Please proceed with your questions.
Hi, thanks for taking the follow-up. Just to clarify in terms of the scenarios here so we're clear in terms of Atlantis, obviously a positive readout there. It looks like that's fairly straightforward. That would obviously, provide options, presumably in combo and mono in use in the market. Potentially, it provides the confirmatory trial that the FDA would be seeking anyway. But in terms of a negative outcome from that, you said that it would, the confirmatory is still, obviously would still be the mono reviewed in its own merits, but a confirmatory trial versus topo. What is the thinking that they would have to then show superiority to topo? And is it really just this factor of the dosing that you've got a higher dose in the mono versus the slightly lower dose in docs that would be the key differentiator here from your perspective?
It's too early to say in all the cases if in any case the FDA require a confirmatory trial, always the trial is agreed with the FDA. Then depend of the label is granted, depend of what is the obviousness of the trial, etc., etc. Then now is too early. If it's needed, what will be the potential confirmatory trial if it's conditional approval? Because it's I don't know it will be conditional approval or full approval, or if it's a conditional approval plus a confirmatory trial, but always the potential confirmatory trial is agreed with the FDA based in the conditional approval granted. Then now is too early. In any case, it's a review issue.
Okay, thank you. And then just to clarify, I know you said about further ongoing R&D costs for small cell, obviously minimal there, but presumably the other potential indications under the terms of agreement, that would be for PharmaMar to fund those other indications, but albeit that then Jazz would have further milestones to pay.
Yeah, well, this is obviously lurbinectedin show a good activity in other tumor types. Now we are under evaluation, not only our activity, we consider it's very good, but the market opportunity for this because we have the other assets in the pipeline to invest the money in order to accelerate this process. In any case, in the end of the day, we decide to move forward for the other indication, obviously, Jazz is our partner only for American territory, not outside America, and accordingly the agreement is opportunity to participate both companies in these potential new indications.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. At this time, I will turn the floor back to our team for any further comments.
All right. Just to thank you all for connecting today to our call, and we're very excited, as you've seen, with this deal, and really, really enthusiastic about our partner, Jazz, and very eager to start working together. This is going to be very, very good for both companies. And as mentioned today, we're also very excited about the future of the company and what this means in terms of new opportunities that we have ahead of us. Finally, just let us remind you that our management team will be available for investor meetings in San Francisco next week. We'll be there, and we have a few remaining open slots. So Trout is managing our schedule, so you should, if you'd like to request a meeting, I'll suggest you contact Trout. And again, thank you very much for connecting today to the call, and we'll see you in the next occasion. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes today's conference. You may disconnect your lines at this time. Thank you for your participation.